So, let me tell you how I got on the road. I'm a little different from you. 99 and 44, 100% of all black people, when they were brought over during our captivity, we never say slaves, not slave ship, the prisoner of war ship. When we were brought over, we landed in the South. Now, the South had a device to stop the knowledge of the beauty and grandeur of our fathers and mothers from coming down to us by taking the babies out the mamas and daddy's arms so you'd never know who you were. Now here's where I differ from you. My great-great-great-grandfather, and you're going to say, well, how do you know this? My great-great-great-grandfather was a lawyer and a sculptor in Benin City, Nigeria, in 1813. You're going to find out in a minute how I know this. His wife, whose name was Nzinga, who was my great-great-great-grandmother, was pregnant in 1813. And she begged her husband not to fight the Europeans who were coming over every other year stealing their sculpture. But they're always stealing something. And they just valued the Benin sculpture. In fact, they had a showing of the Benin sculpture out of the Art Museum in 1990. Some of us, my great-grandfather, I'm quite sure, they didn't put their name on the sculpture like Europeans did, because it was part of the whole group. Well, my grandfather told Nzinga, his wife, he said, I'm going to fight them anyhow. I'd rather die than allow them to keep taking my sculpture. The English came over again in March of that year, and my grandfather, with a group of other sculptors, fought them and was killed. Took my grandmother, pregnant grandmother, and put her on board a ship, bound the ship, the name Jesus, by the way. Bound for South Carolina. On the way over, and this was 1813, on the way over, another ship accosted the ship that my grandmother was on. The ship was owned by abolitionists. You see, because in 1808, there was a law passed in the United States forbidding the importation of any more Songhaians, any more Africans. Nobody paid any attention to the law at all, except one little group, the abolitionists. They were black and white abolitionists. They had put their money together and got some ships and went out on the seas to enforce the law. Just luckily for me, the ship that they captured was the ship my grandmother was on. But it was so close to America that instead of towing it back, instead of shepherding it back to Africa, they towed it to Trenton, New Jersey. And there the abolitionists in Trenton adopted each one of the families on board that ship. And my grandmother, with her new baby, was adopted by a family named Stewart, a white family. So the baby wasn't taken out the mama's arms like they were taken out of all other black folks who landed in America who were in the South. But that was north. Now, you're following what I'm saying? Yeah. I said the story so many times, I think everybody understands what I'm saying, but I'm not always, I ask every once in a while, you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So little Diana heard from her mother, Nzinga, who her daddy was, who was a sculptor and a lawyer in Benin City, Nigeria. So when little Diana grew up, she married about 20 years later, 22 years later, and she had a child in 1842 who helped raise me, who was my great-grandmother, who told me the story. Wow. So from early on, since I was a child, I loved Africa because my great-grandmother was telling me how beautiful the homes were that they lived in. It was a 3-story home made of polished stone sitting on a tree-lined avenue. They had schools and universities in Benin City. So to me, Africa was very positive. So when I went out in the street telling the Tarzanized friends of mine, they said that. You know, I think maybe a wee bit talking about Africa being. I said, no. So this is how I got on the road to transform my people, to know the truth about who we are. That's how I got on the road. And let me tell you why I stayed on the road. It's a whole lot in between. But when I was back there talking with these very knowledgeable friends of mine, no, don't say anything, don't go into that, don't go into that. I want to go into that. No, don't go into that. Let me tell you the spiritual thing that happened to me that kept me on the road. First of all, let me tell you what the problem is. Reiterate what the problem is. The problem is, as Ali said very, very eloquently, that the total society, everybody, white, black, Asians, everybody, Indians, East Indians, Native Americans, all have been programmed by the media of communication to despise anything African. African nose, African lips, African color, African hair, and Africans. We've been all programmed, and he don't want to use the word program, let's say trained, to despise, be contemptuous, feel degraded about anything African. Well, what happened? It happened that because I had this Nigerian background and thought that Africa was great, the part of my brain that could do math was clear.